saying we've got to protest and we've got to fight them, but it's so simple, Richard. We've got to actually go after the 6 mega banks. They use socialism to do this at the grassroots and corporate welfare. They're trying to scapegoat our entire system to use government to steal even more of our money. They use the crimes they've committed as the pretext to take over society and get even more power and shut down what's left of their competition.
Well, it's the classic old problem, reaction, solution that they always use. And I do like the ideas. I like the ideas, especially about getting out there on Friday and going to the Federal Reserve in Dallas and going to Houston on Saturday morning and San Antonio at the Federal Reserve there. That's going to be real exciting to see that, and it's going to be exciting to meet with a lot of the fellow info warriors. And I think that they are really going to be pumped up about the new plan.
And again, we're not going to let George Soros just sit there and hijack the anger and say it's Wall Street and capitalism, and their answer is pay trillions more in the general public's money to offshore mega banks who openly finance communism as a way to rob the public. It's real simple. They're going to use the anger to bring in their full revolution of tyranny. That's what Homeland Security and all of it's about. Get it through your heads. We cannot let the dirty little commies funded by Soros and the rest of them run around and take over the revolution of in the Fed and going after the globalists that we started, just like the Republicans tried to co-opt the damn Tea Party.
Well, and they're not going to succeed in these runs against us because we're going to get out there and we're going to fight, and more people. This movement is way bigger than it was during the 07-08 election cycle. And
just like the Republicans tried to co-opt the Tea Party, we're not going to let them.
Exactly. We're not going to let them. And folks out there, it's going to be very exciting to meet with all the info warriors all around the country as we travel to all the different venues here in Texas and beyond.
I'm getting fired up here. You know, it's always like this. People think I spontaneously know what's going to happen in the future and stuff, Richard, because I just suddenly, think of it. No, with something new, I knew these protests were coming. I knew a Soros color revolution was going to be their answer. I mean, Ron Paul, back in McKinney Roughs 8 years ago, it's in the Matrix of Evil. He said they're going to implode things. The banks are going to use this Glass-Steagall and stuff. He actually talked about it all. And derivatives implode everything and hold everybody hostage. It's at that juncture that they'll try to offer more socialism. Again, at the grassroots, that's transferred in corporate fascism offshore. I always get these idiots sending me emails going, you don't understand, fascism and socialism are two different things. That's what you're taught in your textbooks. But I actually read the CIA declassified Carroll Quigley documents like Tragedy and Hope. He explains, no, they give you two false choices like grape and cherry Kool-Aid, but they both have cyanide. It's still the same stuff. Okay, so they use socialism at the grassroots to consolidate and get us dependent. Then that's transferred offshore to the mega elite that are exempt from their own rules. I don't know how else I get this across to you out there. You need to grow up and get it. The problem is not some free market person that owns a hotel or a restaurant or who owns a place making diamond gusset jeans or somebody like me, a grassroots filmmaker who hires 30-something people. The problem is insider globalists waging war against the true free market and blaming the free market and our free society on everything that's going on and happening. It's so elementary. It's so simple. Richard, anything else?
Well, there's one thing that the powers that be still control, and that's the mainstream media. That's one of the few avenues that they are still able to control the masses. But more and more, the alternative media, like you with InfoWars and all the other great activists, are going to relegate the mainstream media. They're going to still be there, but they'll be like the sideline sideshow, freak show at the circus or whatever that people can still get to watch a little bit of it just to have a flavor of it. But the alternative news is going to relegate all that mainstream news garbage to the wayside.
All right, buddy. I'm going to go about 10 more minutes, and then because when we turn the AC off and the sucker starts getting hot, I'm going to go about, it's too loud if I turn that on. So I'm going to finish up here. Try to compose myself because I've basically just been brainstorming here on air. See, I'm going to be honest. I'd interviewed some guests that have been down there, and I've gotten intel, and Tarpley, who everybody knows is he won't call it a socialist. He calls himself, a true American system person who believes in free credit and capital investment by government. Regardless, he's a great historian, but people out there know this is not some right-winger. And he did the research and said that there's no doubt this is George Soros. And since then, I did some more research. And last night and this morning, I did a lot of research. And, man, when I watched the protest all over the country being given media attention, and I saw the slogans being the same, and I saw that the organizations are connected to the Democratic Party. Listen, it's just like people electing Obama thinking he would fix things. McCain wasn't going to fix things either. They're all bought and paid for by the same interest. More banker bailouts, more stimulus to select insiders, more taxes to shut down their competition. These are monopoly men, and they know there's anger to what they're doing, and so they know that we've reached a revolution point in this country, and they can't have it being led by in the fetters and people that want to get rid of the New World Order. That's why the Federal Reserve has now announced they're spying on their opposition, making enemies list. And you notice right as that happens, they come out with their controlled opposition that just calls for socialism and communism and raising taxes on the rich, because the globalists are in Switzerland and Luxembourg and other areas in Monte Carlo. They're all exempt. You notice all of Obama's big contributors, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, General Electric, you read where they pay zero tax. They get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, some cases trillions of dollars of bailout, and then they make hundreds and hundreds of billions per company in bonuses, and then they're the very ones, go research, the #1 funders of carbon taxes, the #1 funders of all of this. It's Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Bank of England, Dutch Royal Shell, Exxon Mobil, BP, and then I get these emails going, you work for oil companies because you're against carbon taxes. What does a carbon tax do on, what do carbon taxes do on companies in America? It shuts them down. And then the globalists move to China. Aaron Dykes just sent us a message. Many protesters, Boston Fed, chant in the Fed, F the Fed. Yeah, it's already begun. People, listen, months ago we had calls for people to protest the Fed in New York, and they had the cops already waiting for them when we got there. So what happened is they saw the in the Fed protest. That's the point I meant to make. Thank you for reminding me, Richard. Is that there's already protests of the Fed, and it's being ignored by the corporate whore media. But we have the alternative media now. There it is. More than 700 arrested in Wall Street protests, dozens cuffed in Boston after targeting Bank of America. Protests spread across USA, Los Angeles, Chicago, Denver, Seattle. You know, I'm tempted, Richard, to go ahead and have Aaron Dykes do the nightly news and just go ahead and get back and start hitting the road now. And going ahead and just going all over the country and hitting different feds and protesting them and doing the show right here from the RV.
Start.
We're going to see what happens. But again, the mainstream corporate whore media is only trying to focus on people saying down with capitalism, down with the free market, not down with elite corporations being exempt from their own taxes and taking the middle class's money, down with the mega banks lobbying for VAT and other sales taxes to, quote, pay off the debt we owe when it's 1.5 quadrillion of garbage they created that we don't owe. They've done this in Greece. They've done this in Ireland. They didn't get away with it in Iceland. This is a total bamboozling. So let me announce it again. Here's the big announcement. Occupy the Fed protest. Occupy the banksters. Occupy the insiders. Go after the real threat. Don't let them scapegoat the free market. Don't let them blame our republic. Don't let them get away with this. Obama got financed by Goldman Sachs, 4 times the money McCain got, because he was their golden boy who could sell the propaganda. Now they got Rick Perry and all these other Federal Reserve people and Herman Cain. But again, the Republicans knew the Tea Party was going to destroy them, so they tried to co-opt it, but they failed. Rick Perry tried to become Ron Paul. Herman Cain tried to become Ron Paul. But as their records come out, it's over for them. Now, I want to be clear. The mainstream media from day one has not been covering the in the Fed protest because it actually goes to the oligarchs, to the insiders, to the people that are above the law. We are not just going to go around and protest capitalism. We're going to point out we're protesting insider, crony, monopoly people. It's not even crony capitalism. This is insiders hijacking our financial system. George Soros, Michael Moore, Warren Buffett are all lobbying for higher taxes to, quote, get the rich guys. But when you read the legislation being brought forward by them, it's targeting middle-class people, not the ultra-rich. I just say, we don't owe all this money, these tens of trillions of dollars. Let Wall Street take a haircut. Then they'll try to hold us financially hostage and say there's going to be martial law, blood in the streets, just like they did 3.5 years ago here, or just like they just recently did in Europe, and holding everybody hostage. Now they're announcing a financial dictatorship over Europe. They've announced a financial dictatorship. That's the words. Over Europe, run by private banks. Think of the magnitude. And now they're going to do that here. They got a super Congress in place to control the new legislation. so that regular members of the House can't bring forward the spending bills. Do you see how they're setting this up? Do you see how they're getting us ready? They're setting up a bureaucracy of unelected rulers controlled by private central banks over Europe. They've got a super Congress, 12 tyrants with the president as the 13th. All of it coming to a head now, and now they've unleashed all the angry college students who mean well, going, socialism, down with capitalism. Michael Moore, hundreds of millions of dollars, huge insider, waddling around going, capitalism's the problem. This isn't capitalism. Government allowed these mega banks to do this and to get our tax money. They would have just gone bankrupt. But instead, they allow them to say too big to fail and tie it to us, tie that ball and chain, that millstone around our necks. We've seen endless slogans out of these people. You think the bankers were going to implode economies? Listen to me carefully. Did you think the bankers were going to implode economies and bring in all this tyranny and somehow get us to sign on to 1,500 trillion, 1.5 quadrillion without a plan? They're going to bait and switch. It's the same Federal Reserve, now part of Congressional Record, they learned decades later, ran ads through proxy groups in hundreds of newspapers and had their own newspaper columnists write against the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 with the big private banking heads out criticizing it, saying they didn't want it. Please, they said, don't give us a Federal Reserve. It won't let us speculate and rip people off anymore. And what happened? They totally took over the country through it. They had authored it. They had met secretly 100 years ago. They just had the anniversary this year at Jekyll Island. They celebrated their plan 3 years before to bring in the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, 98 years ago. 2 years later, they got it through on December 23rd without a quorum in the House and Senate. 3 senators voted it in, just like the Super Congress. They've got it all lined up. They think you're stupid. They think you can't figure it out. And just watching from L.A. to Chicago, from Boston to you name it, New York, to watch communists run around and say, tax the rich, VAT. And I saw headlines this week, was it the New York Times, about protesters on Wall Street say, raise my taxes. You don't get the taxes. You pay for the war, for the globalist military that we think's the American military and the European military. You pay for the global occupation banker force. You pay for the banker bailouts. You pay for it all. Limbaugh never tells you the inside. Beck never tells you the inside on the right. And you never get told this stuff by the left. They just play you like fiddles, like you're morons. Warren Buffett helped lobby for Glass-Steagall to be repealed, to do this, to sell you the derivatives, to screw everything up, to destroy the world financial system, to hold it all hostage, to bring in a new system, global carbon, global VAT, global sales taxes. Now it's here, global dictatorship. Obama, Bush, the wars, the torture, the Wall Street bailouts, different rhetoric. And what is different rhetoric but the same actions? What has Obama said? He's going to play race card publicly. Now they're saying you're racist if you criticize future bailouts. They're saying everything's racist. Again, it's to get us all fighting, black and white, Hispanic, whatever. Stop fighting and don't start blaming somebody down the street that's got a business. They're not the reason you've got trouble. You tax them, they shut down, now you won't even have a job. And that's what the globalists want. They say they want a post-industrial America. It's the little middle class. We used to have the biggest in the world. It's now shrinking. It's shrunk by around 50% in the last 30 years. Our middle class is almost gone. People are working 2-3 jobs to keep up the middle class lifestyle. They're the ones that employ people. They're the ones that pay the stinking taxes. The big bankers are exempt from it. And this is a plea to all of the well-meaning liberals out there. I told you Barack Obama was going to screw you something fierce, just like I told you Bush was. Just like we've been shooting down Rick Perry right now, and he's plunging. We aren't partisan. We're into the truth. We understand the banksters. We understand their program. We know how to defeat them. And people kept saying for 2 weeks, we had guests on and covered it, and I was kind of neutral. I said, we know the Soros groups are there trying to co-opt it. We know there's libertarian groups. There's and the Fedders there. There's a lot of students that are angry about their student loans being so, loan sharking high. But now it's clear the mainstream media is adding fuel to this fire. They're giving it huge attention. They're saying this is the revolution. They're giving attention to the Ford Foundation-controlled left, people like Democracy Now! and they're going to take all this anger at the bankers, and they're going to blame it on America and the Republic and the